know that things, just pretty much aren't really a good idea. Like maybe it's that one time we learned about an eccentric billionaire who I am actually convinced is an evil genius in some movie being filmed right now, like 007 or something like that. I'm talking about Elon Musk, okay, and Dogecoin. And now we must at all costs buy Dogecoin, which by the way, if you're doing that now, you're probably already past the hype. Maybe I'm not, I don't know. All right, or maybe it's the game Stonk moon adventure that we got on 3 weeks late. Or maybe it's the fact that we put all our money on black at a roulette table half drunk because it was the last night before our flight home. Of all of those things, they're bad ideas. Don't do them, okay? Unless you actually know what you're doing, in which case go nuts. Take pictures on Instagram and talk about how you're a famous stonk investor, okay? But there are cars that are the equivalent of that kind of anxiety, okay? Vehicles that on paper are likely one of the best, most engineered, pinnacle pieces of moving metal on the road, even if they're 30 years old, okay? And then you buy one and you realize why it was on the market for 4 months at half the price it's supposed to be. I'm Alex at FI on Instagram, and today we're gonna be talking about the cars that we look up to because that one influencer has one, but no one else does. The cars that probably came across the sea during the peak of the country's industrial high, which was shortly followed by a tremendous recession because that's just how economics work. Cars that you sometimes hear about from other car enthusiasts that you should stay away from, that you'll ignore anyways. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're gonna be talking about you wanting to own a financial mistake of a car. Industries, where we spend time talking where we spend time talking mostly about aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension because we like that sort of stuff. That's actually like the whole pitch. And we have like a 175 liter of vehicles in our gallery that allow you to enter in your year, make, and model to see exactly what wheels, tires, suspension, or modifications actually look like on that car. So if you're looking to buy a car, you can use it to figure out what fits, all right? And if it makes you happy, you maybe pick them up from us. I don't know, you could. You don't have to, but it'd be sweet if you did. But yeah, be sure to check it out. And if you're looking to add your car to the gallery, fitmentindustries.com/add. At least if you're not gonna do any of that and you're just here to listen to me talk about financial mistakes of a car to see if your car is on this list, well, welcome. It probably is. Don't forget to subscribe. Financial mistakes are nothing new, especially to people like us. Usually younger, usually don't know anything, okay? Currently, I have about 3 financial mistakes, aiming for a 4th if this Lexus LS400 dude pulls through from Janesville, Wisconsin. But the 1UZ is actually a pretty good motor, so it's not technically a financial mistake. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite. In our brief history of cars and modifications, people like you and people like me have learned that there are certain platforms that behave like well to our grubby little hands, okay? And then there's platforms that break before they even get to the first gas station after you bought them on the way home. The ones that do that are the cool ones, and those are the ones that we always want to buy, okay? Cars that fit the first definition are ones that are usually prioritized as functional reliability, okay? And they have strong use cases where longevity and value were at the forefront of the car. You could say that it was probably a value proposition, and it wasn't really meant for flash and attention, it was meant for actually driving. Some of these vehicles like the LS400, the Mazda Miata, the Honda Civic from 2016 to 2019, the Ford Ranger, it's a truck, still counts, S2000, Beetle, and more, those are cars that were just solid. However, there are some cars that came over from the 80s in the States, 90s from overseas, and Europe in the early 00s, then Italy specifically in the 2010s that did the exact opposite. So what's the deal with these multi-billion-dollar companies making such easy mistakes with their cars, causing them to end up becoming financial mistakes for people like us that allows us to use our FAFSA to pay for the bill that we're inevitably going to get because we decided to buy an S-Class? Sean, the first thing to remember is that most of the time, financial mistakes of today's car enthusiasts came from a car manufacturer's inability to stay with what they knew back in the day, okay? Essentially what they did is there was this overcomplication of technology, system, innovation, okay? New designs or overconfidence is what will initially spur the rapid death spiral of reliability on a platform. Times where a car's budget, spend, and a car's technological, that's not a word, advancement just didn't align. You'd see this plague a lot of the JDM cars of the early 90s that were overly invested in technology and variable performance technology specifically, and they just didn't work. There were issues like the 3000 GT VR4 with their active aero and all-wheel steering, whereas the other times most of those other companies could have invested in engine motor performance improvements like the Toyota Supra. Most of these cars that ended up going through this uncomfortable period puberty ended up sorting themselves out. Cars like the 3000 GT VR4 would revert and remove a lot of those extra things in later generations, with the 1999 VR4 likely being one of the purest examples of the car to date. It is beautiful and I love it, and if you own one, call me, all right? Cars like the 300ZX Turbo experienced something similar with its high cast, odd fuel injectors, and oil temp issues, but was later sorted out in the latest models of the car straight from the manufacturer because they realized that they shouldn't have done that thing. They should have just done what they know how to do. Anyway, the unfortunate thing is that people don't recall nor really care about the manufacturer's improvements that were made later down the road to fix the defects from the earlier years. And a lot of times people just kind of just say that they're unreliable, and then they never look back, which is pretty much what a lot of people do. They make one blank accusation and then they never actually try to change their opinion. Welcome to America. All right, but that's the same thing as when they say their RX-7 is unreliable when it's actually just more so difficult to keep alive. Which then results in the second thing. A lot of the things that cause this is people owning cars that they're just way over their head, and then they sell them to you, which become financial mistakes. Everyone wants to own an RX-7. Everybody wants to own an FD until they realize that you can't just fill them up with gasolina. Everyone wants to own an R33 GTR until you realize that their welds rust from the inside out of their wheel wells and require a little extra care, or you'll end up just ruining the car. Everyone wants to own a Datsun 240Z until they find out that they are constantly trying to start themselves on fire because their electrical systems are about the equivalent of a 10-year-old with crayons. This lack of understanding is huge for the mistreatment of cars and often leads to the neglect of keeping them maintained, keeping them healthy, or performing consistently. This lack of care compounds into days, months, and years until people like you and people like me end up picking them up from that one random person that hasn't driven it in 3 years and just needs a battery, often leading to an underwhelming ownership until they've traded for something less picky. They get a Honda Civic, we got a Dodge Stealth Twin Turbo. They're gonna have a better time. And this cycle of over-engineered and under-maintained cars can span the history of automotive manufacturing, and it happened with almost every single brand. We know which platform they're on and we know what models it happens to, but we end up buying them anyway and then get upset when they do exactly what the internet told us they would do, which is it's like, it's gambling. Like, you know you're gonna lose, and then you lose, and then you're mad that you lost. I don't understand it, but we do it anyway. Which is why we're done talking about the history of cars that hurt us more than that one tease that kissed you at a bonfire only to tell you that you're just friends in high school. No, we're here to talk about you wanting to own one of these cars that is blacklisted as a financial mistake. So you want an early gen N54, I mean VR4, I mean Z31 300, I mean 996 non-turbo, any Maserati ever made. Jag, Pre, Ford, okay, never mind. We'll set down your credit card and grab your favorite flashlight because we're about to talk about what it's like to actually own one and how to actually prepare for a financial mistake if you still want to own a $25,000 Vantage, which actually sounds like a pretty fun time. The doors, they slightly open upwards, not just outwards. It's pretty cool. Hear me say it and say it along with me, okay? It's okay to own a car that's not as reliable as a Honda Civic, as long as I know that it's difficult to own. Congratulations, you've now crossed the line. You can buy a 250,000 mile N54. Okay, it's not the best tip, but it's true. If you're gonna own a car labeled as a financial mistake, you need to acknowledge its difficulty before you buy it. It's gonna just get you mentally prepared. There's also a couple 2-3 things that you'll want to know before sending that money order to pick up an early gen E55 AMG. Many of the cars labeled as financial mistakes had manufacturer improvements later in the year as the generation specifically that you're looking at. As such, when researching a car that has a stained history, look to see if the manufacturer fixed it later in the years. The extra couple grand that you'll likely spend for a couple year newer car will 100% be worth it if you can skip over the issues by buying, let's say, a Z32 versus a Z31 as an example, or a car that had a lot of its electrical issues sorted out in the latest year. Great example is an E55 AMG. Don't fall in love with what the owner tells you about the car that you're buying either. Fall in love with the car's review from an online independent resource that is brutally honest, okay? Nearly every buyer out there will tell you that their Alfa Romeo it never had any issues, and they don't understand why they were considered difficult to own, and they don't understand why the maintenance was difficult to have because theirs was perfect. You'll then be calling that same person 240 miles later asking for a refund only to tell you that they're gonna curse at you and tell you to F off, okay? Instead, fall in love with the reviews from people that say Alphas are difficult to own, difficult to keep alive, and has a new platform full of unknowns that people only experience once they get there. But hear there are some common things that you can do to fix those things. Those ones are the ones you want. That way, it's not a surprise. Kia Stingers are a great example of a car that continues to prove that taking this risk can and is worth it, because the Kia Stinger is a blast of a car. It's underrated as hell and still don't have a following that's causing a price hike, especially in today's day and age where you have to buy a Roller 240 for 11 grand. Maintenance is everything on these types of cars. Records of this work must come with a C, you know? Like records of this work, they have to come from an actual place that you know of, okay? And here's a good rule. If it doesn't have, say it with me, if it doesn't have maintenance records, but it's got forced induction, don't trust the seller. If it's naturally aspirated, but it has 3 digits for horsepower, and the first digit starts with 4, don't trust the seller. I don't even care if it's your friend, okay? Your friend is still trying to make a buck on his car, okay? That's literally everyone. The only one that isn't is your mother. Your dad even would, okay? If the professional rebuild was done at a shop that doesn't have a storefront and actually just looks like a house on the corner when you go to Google Maps it, don't trust the seller, all right? I'm just telling you guys to you need to be a little level-headed, okay? And I know cars are cool, but you also need to be a little smart, otherwise you're gonna be in trouble, okay? But if you keep those things in mind and you understand the additional work, you understand the maintenance required to keep the car alive, and you still want to own it, then do it, all right? It's an awesome opportunity, and there's so many incredible cars that meet the above criteria and truly are something fantastic to own. Not only that, but once you've checked all 3 boxes, the aftermarket modification like the wheels, the tires, the suspension from fitmentindustries.com and more will feel like 100 times better because you're really working to get there. It's just more valuable. It feels more fun. That's why a lot of times the more difficult owners of cars have a tendency to almost want to tell you how difficult it is to own the car because they want a little bit of affirmation from the community. Difficult vehicles require patient minds, and even with the bad rep they get, you shouldn't stop buying these cars. The car manufacturers that built these cars put their heart and soul into pushing the bounds of what a typical car was supposed to do. And even though they stumbled a bit, it's our job to try and keep those cars alive and breathing, because if you can maintain them, they still are a banger of a car. And if we don't do that, SUVs will continue to take over the world. Now, I love the RSQ8 too, okay? But I see more Honda Pilots than I do sport-oriented SUVs, and I really don't want to use that as an excuse anymore to be okay with SUVs, all right? The RSQ8 is not even an SUV. But what do you think? Are these cars actually worth it, or should you stick with something simple? Let us know below, and of course, if you're looking for aftermarket wheels, tires, or suspension, be sure to hit us up over at fitmentindustries.com. I'm Alex from Fitment Industries, and we will see you later. Peace.